Today I find myself in the churchyard of St Bartholomew's Church in Colne, and what a wonderfully unexpected place this is. Because standing here you could almost forget that you're in the heart of a busy Lancashire town. There's traffic, shops, people going about their daily business, all the noise and movement that comes with a modern industrial town, and yet tucked away amongst it all, this little haven of tranquility. A place where the pace seems to slow. A place where the modern world feels just a little further away. And as always, it's the stones that really draw me in. There's been a church on this site since at least the 12th century, and it's quite possible that its origins go back even further. The building we see today is predominantly 16th century, although it has been altered and restored over the centuries. It's now a Grade 1 listed building, which gives you some indication of just how significant it is. But for me, the real treasures are outside. The churchyard itself is a remarkable survival. And what immediately caught my eye was the number of wonderfully legible gravestones dating right back into the early 17th century. The oldest dated gravestone here is from 1604. Think about that for a moment. 1604. We're looking at stones that were already standing here before the Industrial Revolution, before the cotton mills transformed Lancashire, before the railway arrived in Colne, before the town became the industrial landscape we recognise today. And yet the names are still there, the dates are still there, the words carved into stone can still be read. For someone who loves old gravestones, this is rather thrilling. There's something incredibly intimate about standing beside a 400-year-old memorial and still being able to read the name of the person whose life it commemorates. Because these aren't simply old stones, they're surviving fragments of ordinary lives. People who lived, worked, loved, struggled, raised families, and eventually came here to rest. Then of course there are the little details, because you do really have to look closely at old churchyards. Among these stones I discovered, I love the little detail, a tiny skull discreetly carved into the corner of a grave marker, almost hiding. You could easily walk past it without noticing. But there it is, a little reminder of mortality, quietly carved into old stone. This is something I always find fascinating about older memorials. They don't need to shout their message. Sometimes the most powerful symbolism is tucked away in a corner, waiting for someone to notice it. Then there's another wonderful piece of history standing within the churchyard, an old stone cross. It's medieval in origin and stands as a reminder that this was once an important place long before Colne became the industrial town it is today. The cross is listed in its own right, and its presence gives us another glimpse into the medieval history of the town. It's particularly fitting when you remember that Colne itself was already an established market centre centuries ago. The town's market was historically associated with this area. The churchyard once contained the market cross and the stocks. The surviving market cross itself was later relocated to Market Street and extensively restored. So standing here, there are layers upon layers of history beneath your feet. Medieval Colne, 16th century architecture, 17th century gravestones. And then the industrial town that grew around it. It's the contrast that's so fascinating. You don't necessarily have to travel into the countryside to find somewhere peaceful and steeped in history. Sometimes you just have to look behind the noise. I have to admit, there was one thing missing from today's visit though. No sundial. But by this point, finding a sundial has become something of a weekend obsession for me, so naturally I had to have a look. But you know what? I wasn't disappointed, because sometimes you don't need the things you were expecting to find. Sometimes you find something much better. And here, in the middle of a busy Lancashire town, I found centuries of history sitting quietly among the gravestones. A medieval cross, a church with origins reaching back to the 12th century, gravestones from the early 1600s, and one tiny skull, quietly reminding us that however much the town around us changes, the oldest lesson of all remains exactly the same. Tempus fugit, time flies. And here in St Bartholomew's Churchyard, you can almost watch it passing through the stones.